Good evening, my friends. Tonight, we speak not of a wish, but of a law. Not a technique, not a ritual, not a hopeful strategy, but a law, as precise and impartial as gravity, as faithful as breath, as exact as cause and effect. A law that has been operating in your life long before you became aware of it, shaping experiences, arranging outcomes, and reflecting back to you the inner agreements you have lived from. If you want something, truly want it, not as fantasy, but as lived reality, this law is already the only way it can come to you. And the law is this: reality must reflect the state you consistently occupy in consciousness. Nothing more, nothing less. From the beginning, Scripture revealed this truth, not as metaphor, but as instruction. According to your faith, be it unto you. Faith was never belief in a distant miracle. Faith was where you lived inwardly. Faith was the state you assumed to be true before evidence appeared. You do not attract what you want. You do not manifest what you hope for. You experience what you are being. This is not philosophy. This is structure. Most people spend their lives asking life to change while remaining inwardly unchanged. They want new results while continuing to live from old identities. They pray for different outcomes while secretly dwelling in the same assumptions, fears, and expectations that created the current one. And life, being lawful, answers honestly. It answers the state. If you want something, the first question is not how can I get it? The first question is, who am I being in relation to it? Because wanting itself is already a state, and it is usually a state of lack. Lack is not absence of things. Lack is the feeling of not yet, and not yet is a command. The law does not argue with your desires. It does not judge your intentions. It simply reflects the position you are standing in inwardly. If you stand in wanting, life reflects more wanting. If you stand in waiting, life reflects delay. If you stand in fulfillment, life must reorganize itself to confirm that fulfillment. This is why Christ never taught people to plead. He taught them to assume. He spoke of seeds, of soil, of states that produce after their own kind. The kingdom of God is within you, not coming, not arriving, within. Within means cause. If you want something, you must move from asking for it to living from it. And living from it does not mean pretending. It does not mean forcing belief. It does not mean denying present circumstances. It means changing your inner residence. Where do you live inwardly? Do you live in anticipation? Do you live in fear of disappointment? Do you live in comparison and delay? Or do you live in quiet acceptance? Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is the end of inner conflict. When you accept something as true, the subconscious mind receives it as fact. And the subconscious mind is the builder. It organizes perception, behavior, opportunity, timing, and interaction to make that fact visible. Science describes this as identity-based behavior and perceptual filtering. Scripture described it as faith. Different languages, same mechanism. You do not need to force action. You do not need to chase opportunity. You do not need to control outcomes. You need to agree with the end. This is why Neville Goddard taught the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Fulfillment is not the result, it is the cause. The feeling of completion is what sets everything else in motion. If you want peace, you do not wait for conditions to calm. You live from calm. If you want security, you do not wait for guarantees. You live from safety. If you want abundance, you do not wait for proof. You live from sufficiency. And living from does not feel dramatic. It feels ordinary. Ordinary is the signal. When something feels ordinary inwardly, it is inevitable outwardly. This is why excitement often delays manifestation. Excitement implies rarity. It implies something special that might be lost. Fulfillment feels normal, stable, settled. So if you want something, ask yourself gently, what would feel different if this were already true? Not what would look different, not what would change externally. What would feel different? Would you feel relief, calm, confidence, ease? That feeling is the state. And the law responds only to state. You do not need to hold the feeling all day. You do not need to sustain emotional intensity. You need to return to the state consistently. Consistency is power. Every time you notice yourself slipping back into waiting, worrying, or checking, you do not judge yourself. You simply return. You step back into the feeling of being complete. And each return deepens familiarity. Familiarity creates reality. What feels familiar becomes normal. What becomes normal becomes visible. This is why the law works even when you stop thinking about it. Once a state is accepted, it operates beneath awareness. You stop monitoring it. You stop checking for results. And that very lack of monitoring accelerates the process because checking belongs to doubt. Doubt asks, is it working? Faith says, it is done. Faith is not loud. Faith does not convince. Faith rests, and rest is creative. Be still, and know that I am God. Stillness was never passivity. Stillness was the end of inner striving, the end of the belief that something essential was missing. When you rest in the assumption, you stop interfering with the law. Now understand this clearly. The law does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you consistently feel to be true. If you feel unworthy, life reflects obstacles. If you feel overlooked, life reflects delay. If you feel chosen, life reflects cooperation. This is not punishment. It is precision. So the work is gentle but exact. You become aware of your inner posture, not to control it harshly, but to choose it deliberately. You stop rehearsing loss. You stop narrating fear. You stop identifying with temporary emotions. You remember that emotions are weather, not climate. The climate is the state you return to. And when you return often enough, the climate changes. This is how transformation happens, not through force, but through residence. If you want something, you must be willing to let go of the identity that needs it, because the identity that needs cannot receive. Only the identity that has can allow. This is why manifestation feels paradoxical. You receive when you stop needing. You see when you stop seeking. You arrive when you stop chasing, because chasing affirms absence. And absence is what gets reflected. So you stop chasing. You live your life. You fulfill your responsibilities. You act when action feels natural. But inwardly, you remain settled. You do not wait for signs. You do not measure progress. You do not demand reassurance. You remain faithful to the state. And faithfulness is enough. As days pass, you will notice changes not only externally but internally first. Your reactions soften. Your expectations adjust. You stop bracing for disappointment. You stop over-explaining yourself. You carry yourself differently. This is evidence. Outer evidence follows inner evidence. And even when time passes and nothing visible seems to happen, you do not abandon the state, because you understand now that the unseen always precedes the seen. Seeds germinate underground. Identity stabilizes before circumstances shift. You are not waiting. You are allowing. Allowance is trust in law. And the law never fails, not because it favors you, but because it reflects you. So if you want something, whatever it is, understand this. You do not manifest by wanting harder. You manifest by being differently. You change the inner position. You accept the end. You live from fulfillment. And life, exact and obedient, does the rest. Now, as we settle into stillness, let this truth rest quietly within you. There is nothing to force, nothing to convince, nothing to chase. You have already learned the law. Remain where nothing is missing. Remain where the wish feels complete. Remain faithful to the state you have chosen. And let life, patient, precise, and unfadingly honest, continue to reflect back to you the consciousness you live from. Be still now. It is already in motion. And as this law continues to unfold within you, something subtle but decisive takes place. You stop confusing movement with progress. You realize now that progress does not announce itself with noise. It does not always come dressed in change you can immediately point to. Progress happens first as settlement, as quiet, internal agreement, as the end of inner debate. When the debate ends, the law begins to work unhindered. This is why so many abandon the process too early. They mistake stillness for stagnation. They mistake calm for inactivity. They forget that the most powerful forces in nature are silent. Gravity does not argue. Seeds do not shout. The heart does not explain itself, and neither does law. When you live from the state that assumes fulfillment, the law does not rush to prove itself. It arranges, it aligns, it prepares, it moves pieces you cannot see yet, and it does so with precision far beyond what conscious planning could ever achieve. This is why impatience has no place here. Impatience says, I am not yet. Fulfillment says, it is already done. And the law only recognizes one voice at a time. So you learn to listen to yourself more carefully. You notice the tone beneath your thoughts. You feel the posture beneath your actions. You become aware of what you are silently agreeing with throughout the day. Not to control yourself harshly, but to remain honest. Honesty is alignment. If you notice yourself slipping into waiting, you do not panic. You do not correct aggressively. You simply return. You return to the inner position where the desire is already complete. You return to the feeling of enoughness. You return to the calm certainty that nothing essential is missing. And every return shortens the distance. Distance was never external. Distance was always internal. The moment you stop living towards something and start living from it, distance collapses. What once felt far begins to feel inevitable. What once felt fragile begins to feel ordained, not by fate, by law. You also begin to understand why forcing positivity never worked. Because forced positivity still carries resistance. It is effort disguised as optimism. Fulfillment carries no effort. It is neutral, stable, quiet. Fulfillment does not need to convince anyone, not even you. This is why the law responds faster when you stop talking about your desire. Words often keep things conceptual. Feeling makes them factual. You may notice that you stop explaining your plans to others, not because you are hiding, but because you are settled. Explanation belongs to uncertainty. Silence belongs to knowing, and knowing has weight. That weight changes how you walk into rooms, how you respond to conversations, how you approach challenges. You are no longer asking life, will this work out? You are asking, how do I move as someone for whom it already has? And that question answers itself. You move with more patience, more clarity, more trust, not because you are waiting, but because you are anchored. Anchored people do not rush. They allow. And allowance is the final act of faith. Faith is not hoping the law will work. Faith is not interfering with it. So you stop interrupting with doubt. You stop checking with fear. You stop measuring with comparison. You allow the unseen to finish assembling. And one day, often when you are no longer watching, the outer world shifts. Something aligns, something opens, something resolves. And it feels strangely unsurprising because you have already lived there inwardly. This is how manifestation arrives, not as shock, but as recognition. You say, of course, not finally. And that difference matters. Of course belongs to fulfillment. Finally belongs to waiting. You no longer say finally. You live as one for whom the law has always been working. So remain gentle now. Let the law continue doing what it does best, reflecting the state you occupy. You have already done the only work required. You have changed where you live inwardly. And from that change, everything else must follow. And as this inner shift continues to stabilize, you begin to recognize something that changes the way you relate to life entirely. You are no longer trying to use the law. You are living in harmony with it. The law no longer feels like a principle you remember during quiet moments and forget under pressure. It has become the background intelligence of your day. The way you interpret events, the way you respond to uncertainty, the way you carry yourself when nothing visible has changed yet. You stop asking whether the law is working. You start noticing how faithfully it always has. Every experience you have ever had was evidence not of luck, not of fate, not of circumstance, but of state, of what you were inwardly consenting to, of what you felt to be true beneath thought. And this realization does not burden you. It releases you. Because if your past was shaped by unconscious states, your future can be shaped by conscious ones. You no longer fear your thoughts. You understand now that thoughts alone do not create. Passing ideas have no power. What creates is what you return to, what you dwell in, what you allow to feel normal. Normal is the key. The law does not respond to what feels possible. It responds to what feels normal. So you allow the state of having of being to become normal. Not overnight, not dramatically, but through gentle repetition, through daily residence, through refusing to dramatize lack. You live your life. You go to work. You speak with people. You handle responsibilities. But inwardly, something is different. You are no longer leaning forward emotionally. You are not reaching. You are standing in the assumption that what you want is already accounted for. Standing in the knowing that life is not withholding, it is arranging. Standing in the calm authority of someone who understands cause and effect. This changes how you interpret setbacks. They no longer feel personal. They no longer feel final. They feel transitional, like pieces moving into place. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" You start sensing, "This is adjusting something." And because you do not resist adjustment, it completes faster. Resistance was never strength. Resistance was delay. Allowing does not mean doing nothing. Allowing means not fighting what you do not yet understand. This is why patience emerges naturally now. Not the patience of someone waiting in line, but the patience of someone who already owns the destination. Ownership changes posture. You do not lean forward. You do not strain your vision. You remain relaxed, alert, present. And presence has creative power. Presence keeps you from slipping back into old identities. Presence allows you to catch subtle moments when you would have reacted from fear and instead respond from alignment. Presence keeps you honest about where you are living inwardly, and honesty keeps the signal clean. A clean signal produces a clear reflection. This is why manifestation often accelerates when you stop making it the center of your life, because obsession carries tension. Tension signals lack. Fulfillment carries ease. Ease signals completion. So your focus shifts not away from your desire, but away from needing it to validate you. You stop using manifestation as proof of worth. You stop measuring your growth by outcomes. You measure by alignment. Am I calmer than before? Am I less reactive? Am I more trusting of life's intelligence? Am I living more from wholeness than from hunger? These are the real indicators. And when these shift, outcomes follow as a consequence, not a goal. You may notice now that when you imagine, it is brief and unforced. A momentary sense of relief, a quiet image of normal life, a passing feeling of satisfaction, and then you let it go. Letting go is not abandonment. Letting go is confidence. It says, "I no longer need to hold this because it is already held." And the law responds to that confidence with speed, not hurried speed, but clean speed. The kind that does not create chaos, the kind that arrives with coherence. So remain here, not tense, not vigilant, not checking, simply living. Living as one who understands that wanting was only the doorway and being is the room. You have stepped inside. And from this place, life will continue to unfold not as a struggle to achieve, but as a quiet agreement being honored. Stay here. The law knows what to do next. And as you continue to live from this quiet alignment, one final truth begins to reveal itself. Not as a thought, but as a certainty that settles beneath thought. You were never meant to struggle with desire. Desire was never a problem to solve. It was a signal, a pointer showing you the state you were ready to inhabit. Once the state is inhabited, desire has completed its function. This is why wanting fades naturally when being takes its place. Not because the wish disappears, but because the distance disappears, the tension dissolves, the inner gap closes. And when the gap closes, the law has nothing left to bridge. This is the moment where life feels strangely cooperative. Not perfect, not predictable, but responsive. You stop feeling like you are pushing against something invisible. You sense that events are no longer resisting you. Even when they are still forming, resistance was never external. It was always internal contradiction. Now there is no contradiction. You are not saying one thing and feeling another. You are not hoping outwardly and doubting inwardly. You are not imagining success while bracing for failure. You are congruent. And congruence carries authority. This authority is not dominance. It is steadiness. The kind of steadiness that allows you to wait without impatience, act without anxiety, and rest without guilt. You no longer feel that life is testing you. You feel that life is responding to you, because it is. Every assumption you allow to feel normal is being registered. Every state you return to is being reinforced. Every moment you remain fulfilled is being mirrored back in ways both subtle and unmistakable. You may notice that even challenges arrive differently now. They do not come as threats to your identity. They come as invitations to remain in it. And because you remain, they resolve without drama. This is mastery not over life, but over residence. You know where to live inwardly. And because you know where to live, you are not easily displaced. You do not abandon the end when appearances fluctuate. You do not retreat into fear when timing is unclear. You do not collapse into doubt when silence stretches. Silence no longer scares you. Stillness no longer feels empty. Waiting no longer feels like delay. Everything feels purposeful, even when you do not yet see the purpose. This trust is not naive. It is earned. It comes from seeing, again and again, that life rearranges itself around inner truth far more reliably than around outer effort. So you stop trying to manage the law. You stop trying to improve the process. You stop trying to manifest faster. Speed is no longer your concern. Alignment is. And alignment is now natural. You live your life with presence. You show up fully to what is in front of you, without using the present as a means to escape to the future. You are here, and being here feels sufficient. Sufficiency is magnetic. From sufficiency, ideas arise effortlessly. Connections form naturally. Opportunities appear without force. Not because you are lucky, but because you are no longer blocking what is trying to reach you. This is the quiet reward of living by law rather than by struggle. And now, as everything begins to settle into a deeper stillness, allow this final understanding to rest gently within you. If you want something, you do not need to reach for it. You need to stand where it already exists inwardly. Remain there long enough for it to feel normal. Normal long enough for it to feel inevitable. Inevitable long enough for it to appear. This is not a cycle you rush. It is a state you live from. So let the law continue its work without interruption. Let life continue arranging itself without your supervision. Let outcomes arrive without being chased. You have already done what was required. You change the inner position. Everything else is movement. Remain still now. Remain faithful. And let the world obedient, precise, and quietly exact continue to reflect back to you the state you have chosen to live in. And as you remain faithful to this inner position, something even quieter takes hold. A sense that life is no longer something you are trying to solve. It is something you are participating in. You stop approaching each day as a problem to be fixed or a hurdle to overcome. You move through it as one who trusts the intelligence beneath appearances. You no longer brace yourself for what might go wrong. You allow yourself to be guided by what feels aligned. This is not passivity. This is attunement. Attunement to the law that has always been working on your behalf, once unconsciously, now deliberately. You begin to notice how often life offers small confirmations long before the larger ones arrive. A moment of ease where there used to be tension, a conversation that unfolds effortlessly, a decision that feels clear instead of conflicted. These are not coincidences. They are echoes of the state you now live from. And because you recognize them as echoes, you do not cling to them. You do not celebrate prematurely or analyze them obsessively. You simply allow them to reassure you, not emotionally, but structurally. They tell you the signal is clean. A clean signal means the reflection must continue. This is why the law never needs reminders. Once impressed, it operates automatically. It does not require your constant attention. In fact, attention that checks too often introduces doubt, and doubt introduces noise. So you learn to let go properly. Letting go does not mean forgetting your desire. It means releasing the identity that needed proof. You no longer need proof to feel secure. You no longer need signs to feel confident. You no longer need reassurance to remain aligned. You have learned to live from sufficiency. And sufficiency changes how you see everything. You no longer see obstacles, you see timing. You no longer see rejection, you see redirection. You no longer see delay, you see preparation. This does not make you naive. It makes you accurate, because accuracy belongs to the one who understands cause and effect. The cause is always inner. The effect is always outer. And the law never reverses that order. So now, when something does not appear immediately, you do not interpret it as failure. You interpret it as movement you do not yet need to see. You trust the process not because you are waiting, but because you are already whole. Wholeness removes desperation. Desperation distorts timing. Wholeness allows timing to be precise. And precision is what you are experiencing now. Life does not rush you. Life does not tease you. Life does not withhold arbitrarily. Life responds to the state you occupy. You are no longer occupying need. You are no longer occupying struggle. You are no longer occupying longing. You are occupying being. Being calm, being steady, being fulfilled before evidence. This is why even uncertainty feels different now. It does not threaten you. It feels spacious, like room for intelligence to move. You do not rush to fill it with conclusions. You allow it to clarify itself. Clarity always arrives to those who wait without waiting. And now, as the movement slows again, let this truth settle gently. You do not manifest by effort. You manifest by agreement. Agreement with the end. Agreement with fulfillment. Agreement with the state that feels like completion. You have made that agreement. So allow the law to continue uninterrupted. Allow life to continue rearranging itself. Allow form to catch up with feeling. There is nothing left to do inwardly, nothing left to adjust, nothing left to seek. Remain where you are. The law is already answering. And now, gently, everything comes to rest. Not because something has ended, but because nothing more is required. You are no longer standing at the doorway of desire. You have stepped into the room of fulfillment. You are no longer asking life to respond. You are allowing it to echo. The law has already been impressed. The state has already been chosen. The inner agreement has already been made. There is no need to hurry from here. No need to measure outcomes. No need to look ahead or behind. What was once wanted has become where you live from. And what you live from must live around you. So let the days unfold naturally. Let events arrange themselves without your supervision. Let form rise quietly to meet the feeling you have already accepted as true. Remain gentle with yourself. Remain faithful to the state. Remain still enough to recognize that nothing essential is missing. This is not waiting. This is rest. This is the Sabbath of consciousness, the sacred pause where effort ends and law completes its work. Be still now. Remain fulfilled. And let life obedient, precise, and unfailingly faithful continue to reveal in its perfect timing what was already decided within you. Be still. Before you reach for understanding, allow your body to soften. Let the breath deepen without instruction, because what you are about to hear is not meant to be analyzed first. It is meant to be remembered. Remembered in the place where truth has always lived quietly beneath fear, beneath conditioning, beneath the story of not enough. Lack is a lie, not a poetic lie, not a motivational exaggeration, a structural lie. There is only abundance. And until this truth is felt, not argued, not affirmed, but inhabited, the world will continue to look fragmented, competitive, scarce, and demanding. Not because it is, but because perception organizes itself around belief. Scripture names this plainly. According to your faith be it unto you. Faith here is not optimism. It is assumption. It is the inner agreement about what is real. And the greatest misalignment humanity ever accepted was the belief that life withholds. This belief did not originate in God. It originated in fear. Fear of survival, fear of separation, fear of not being enough. And from that fear, the illusion of lack was born. But illusion does not mean unreal experience. It means misinterpreted cause. You have experienced lack. You have felt limitation. You have known absence. But those experiences were not proof of lack. They were evidence of belief operating flawlessly. Because the law does not judge. It reflects, and what it reflects is not circumstance, it reflects state. Abundance is not something you acquire. It is something you recognize. This is why Christ never taught people how to get abundance. He taught them how to see. Having eyes, see ye not? The kingdom, he said, is already present. Not coming, not waiting, present. So how can lack exist in a kingdom that is here? It cannot unless perception is distorted. Distortion does not remove abundance. It hides it. Now listen carefully, because this is where the mind often resists. Lack feels real because the nervous system remembers fear, and fear narrows perception. When perception narrows, reality looks smaller. When reality looks smaller, you believe there is not enough. But the field never shrank. Your view did. Science confirms this. Under stress, the brain restricts information flow. You literally see fewer options. Creativity shuts down. Opportunity disappears from awareness, not from existence. Lack is not absence. Lack is contraction, and contraction is internal. This is why abundance never arrives through chasing. Chasing reinforces the assumption that it is elsewhere. That assumption maintains contraction. and contraction keeps the illusion alive. Neville Goddard understood this precisely. He did not say, think positively about money. He said, assume the state of the wish fulfilled. Why? Because assumption expands identity. An expanded identity perceives abundance as normal. Normality is the doorway. You do not feel grateful for what you think is scarce. You feel grateful for what feels inevitable. This is why the wealthy do not obsess over money. This is why the loved do not beg for affection. This is why the secure do not compete for validation. They are not special. They are simply positioned in sufficiency. And sufficiency is abundance recognized. Now understand this with clarity and compassion. You were never lacking because life failed you. You were lacking because you believed in separation. Separation from supply. Separation from source. Separation from self. But separation is the illusion Christ came to dissolve. I and the Father are one. This was not theology. It was ontology. If source and expression are one, how can supply be absent? If the ocean expresses itself as waves, can the wave ever lack water? The wave may rise and fall, but the ocean remains. You are not meant to secure abundance. You are meant to rest in it. Rest does not create abundance. Rest reveals it. This is why striving blocks flow. Striving says, I am not safe yet. And the law faithfully echoes insecurity. But the moment you stop arguing with sufficiency, life reorganizes, not magically, mechanically. Your perception widens, your decisions sharpen, your timing aligns, and what was always present becomes visible. This is why gratitude works, not because it pleases God, but because it signals perception of fullness. Gratitude does not create abundance. It confirms awareness of it. But forced gratitude fails because the body knows when it is lying. Gratitude must arise from recognition, not obligation. So do not try to feel abundant. See abundance. See it in breath that arrives without effort. See it in the heart that beats without permission. See it in the intelligence that heals wounds without instruction. If life were truly scarce, none of this would function. Scarcity would be structural, but abundance is structural. Scarcity is perceptual. This is why Christ fed thousands without anxiety. He did not multiply bread through effort. He recognized sufficiency and blessed it. Blessing is recognition. Recognition expands, and expansion manifests. This is the order. Now bring this into your daily life. Notice how lack speaks. Lack says, I must hurry. Lack says, there's not enough time. Lack says, I'm falling behind. Lack says, if I don't get this, I lose. These are not facts. They are signals of contraction. And contraction can be released, not by force, by truth. Truth that there is more than enough time. Truth that nothing meant for you can miss you. Truth that supply is not external. It flows through identity. When you shift identity from one who must secure to one who is supported, behavior changes naturally. You stop hoarding. You stop competing. You stop comparing. Comparison is the offspring of lack. Abundance does not compare. It expresses, and expression multiplies. This is why generosity unlocks flow, not because you give to get, but because giving affirms belief in sufficiency. The law echoes that belief, but generosity without truth becomes depletion. True generosity flows from recognition, not sacrifice. You are not here to drain yourself. You are here to circulate life. Circulation requires trust. And trust grows when you realize that lack has never been the truth, only the story. Now let this truth descend from concept into being. You are not behind. You are not running out. You are not missing your chance. There is only abundance expressing itself in form, in timing, in sequence. Sequence does not mean scarcity. It means order. The oak tree is not lacking because it is not yet a forest. The seed is not lacking because it is not yet a tree. Growth is not absence. It is process. Lack confuses process with failure. Abundance understands timing. So stop fighting the moment. The moment is not withholding. It is preparing. And preparation is abundance in motion. Now, as this realization deepens, your nervous system relaxes. You feel less pressure to prove, to hurry, to grasp. You act from clarity rather than fear. And clarity reveals opportunities that were invisible before. Nothing new arrived. You simply saw what was always there. This is the miracle. And now, as this teaching comes to rest, let this final truth anchor fully. You do not live in a world of lack, trying to earn abundance. You live in a field of abundance, learning to release the illusion of lack. That illusion dissolves the moment you stop agreeing with it. So agree now with truth. Agree with sufficiency. Agree with support. Agree with the intelligence that has never failed to sustain you. Be still. Feel the abundance that is already breathing you. And live from that knowing. It is enough. And remain with that knowing. Because what follows is not an addition to truth, it is the settling of it into identity. When you truly see that lack is a lie, something inside you stops negotiating with life. You no longer approach the world as a place that must be extracted from, conquered, or outpaced. You approach it as a field that responds faithfully, mathematically, to the position you occupy within it. This is why abundance is never loud. It does not announce itself. It does not prove itself. It simply flows where it is allowed. Lack was never the absence of supply. Lack was the posture of resistance. Resistance to receiving, resistance to timing, resistance to the idea that you are already held. The moment this resistance softens, the body registers safety. And when the body feels safe, perception expands. When perception expands, opportunity multiplies. When opportunity multiplies, experience changes. Nothing mystical occurred. Alignment did. This is why the teaching of Christ was never about accumulation. It was about union. He did not say, go and gather more. He said, abide. Abide in what? In truth, in awareness, in the kingdom already present. Abiding is not effort. It is residence. And when you reside in sufficiency, scarcity has nowhere to land. Now notice how lack speaks in subtle ways, not always about money, but about time, love, energy, worth. I don't have enough time. I'm running out of chances. On SUP, there's not enough for everyone. I have to protect what little I have. These thoughts feel practical. They feel responsible. But they are echoes of a false premise. Time is not scarce, attention is scattered. Love is not scarce, trust is contracted. Opportunity is not scarce, perception is narrowed. Abundance does not deny challenge. It denies separation. This is why two people can face the same circumstance and experience it completely differently. One sees threat, the other sees rearrangement. One contracts, the other adapts. Adaptation is abundance in motion. The adaptable thrive because they do not cling to form. They trust flow. They understand that supply does not arrive in one fixed shape. It moves, reshapes, and responds. Those who believe in lack cling tightly to what they know. Those who know abundance move lightly. Lightness is not irresponsibility. Lightness is confidence in continuity. Scripture affirms this quietly. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, and running over. This is not a reward system. It is a description of circulation. What flows outward without fear returns multiplied because it signals trust and supply, and the law mirrors trust. But when giving is done from fear, fear of punishment, fear of loss, it blocks flow rather than releasing it. So abundance is not moral. It is positional. Position yourself as one who is supported, and support appears. Position yourself as one who is running out, and life feels tight. The law is not personal. It is precise. Now let this truth correct something deeply ingrained. You do not manifest abundance by thinking about abundance. You manifest abundance by ceasing to identify as someone without. Identity precedes experience. This is why affirmations spoken from desperation fail. They attempt to add abundance on top of lack, but lack cannot hold abundance. It repels it. You must change the container. The container is identity. When you identify as someone who is resourced, guided, supported, behavior changes naturally. You invest differently, you speak differently, you wait differently, you choose differently, and those differences compound. Compound alignment produces visible abundance. This is why abundance often looks sudden from the outside. People say it all happened at once, but inside the shift occurred long before. First came calm, then clarity, then coherence, then consequence. Consequence follows coherence every time. Now, consider how this truth reshapes your relationship with effort. You no longer try to extract value from every moment. You no longer panic about pauses. You no longer equate rest with danger. Rest is not lost time. Rest is integration. Integration is where expansion becomes stable. Those who fear rest believe in scarcity. Those who trust rest believe in abundance. This is why the Sabbath was holy, not as ritual, but as recognition that creation does not require constant exertion. Rest completes creation. You are allowed to rest because abundance does not disappear when you stop striving. It never did. Now feel how this truth settles the nervous system. The shoulders drop. The breath deepens. The inner urgency quiets. You are no longer trying to outrun lack because you see that lack was never chasing you. It was a story, and stories lose power the moment they are seen clearly. From here, generosity becomes natural. Not generosity of obligation, but generosity of overflow. You give ideas, time, presence, not because you fear loss, but because you trust return. And return does not always look the same as what was given. That is the mind of lack speaking, demanding symmetry. Abundance understands transformation. The seed does not return as a seed. It returns as a harvest. Now stay with this awareness. You are not meant to fight scarcity. You are meant to outgrow it. Outgrowing happens quietly, when you no longer argue with sufficiency, when you no longer try to convince yourself, when you simply live as though support is normal. Normality is the deepest prayer. So live now as one who is supplied. Move now as one who is guided. Choose now as one who is supported, not as performance, as truth, because lack was never real, only believed. And belief can end. Remain here. Abundance is not coming. It is revealing itself. And as abundance continues to reveal itself, something essential changes in the way you meet the world. You stop bracing. Bracing was the body's way of preparing for disappointment. It was the quiet assumption that something might be taken, that something might not arrive, that something could run out. And because the body believed this, the mind organized life around protection instead of participation. But abundance does not require protection. Abundance requires presence. When you know there is more than enough, you stop guarding, you stop hoarding energy, time, love, ideas. You stop measuring every interaction for gain or loss. You become available, and availability is fertile ground. This is why abundance feels relational. It moves through people, through moments, through timing. It does not always appear as a number or an object first. It appears as flow. Flow of insight, flow of connection, flow of opportunity. And flow only moves where fear has loosened its grip. This is why Christ said, freely ye have received, freely give. Not as a command, but as a description of how abundance behaves. What is freely received does not cling. What clings does not flow. Clinging is the habit of lack. Flow is the nature of abundance. Now notice how this reframes effort completely. You still apply yourself. You still act. You still create. But you no longer act as though every move is survival. You act from curiosity instead of desperation, from contribution instead of compensation, from expression instead of extraction. This shift alone changes results. When you create from lack, you burn out. When you create from abundance, you energize, because abundance is regenerative. This is why people who truly live in abundance do not feel drained by giving. They feel more alive. Giving does not reduce them. It circulates them. Circulation is abundance in motion, and motion confirms supply. Now, let this truth settle even deeper. Abundance is not the opposite of discipline. It is the foundation of it. Scarcity discipline says, I must force myself or I will fall behind. Abundance discipline says, I choose wisely because I am resourced. One is rigid. The other is grounded. Grounded discipline is sustainable. Scarcity discipline collapses. This is why abundance feels peaceful. Not because nothing is happening, but because nothing is being fought. You are no longer fighting time. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer fighting life. You are cooperating, and cooperation multiplies capacity. Now look back gently, without judgment, and see how many of your struggles were not caused by circumstances, but by the belief that you were running out of time, running out of chances, running out of strength, running out of worth. Those beliefs made you rush Rushing made you miss. Missing reinforced the belief. That loop ends here because you are no longer agreeing with the premise. You are not running out. You never were. There is more time than you think because time expands for the calm. There are more chances than you imagine because alignment attracts opportunity. There is more strength than you feel because rest restores capacity. There is more worth than you were taught because worth was never conditional. This is not positive thinking. This is ontological truth. You exist within an intelligent, self-renewing system. Nothing in nature is built on lack. Even decay feeds growth. Even endings create beginnings. Even emptiness prepares space. Lack is not a law. Lack is a misunderstanding. And misunderstandings dissolve when seen clearly. Now allow this clarity to touch the most sensitive places, the areas where fear once lived quietly. The fear of not being enough. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of missing your moment. These fears do not need to be fought. They need to be outgrown, and you outgrow them by standing in truth long enough for the nervous system to learn safety. Safety does not come from stockpiling. Safety comes from trusting continuity. Continuity of breath, continuity of supply, continuity of guidance. Guidance has never stopped. You were never abandoned. You were only distracted by fear. Now the distraction is lifting. You are beginning to see that abundance is not an event. It is the ground of being itself. It is what remains when the story of lack falls away. And because it is ground, it does not need to be chased. You stand on it. So stand now inwardly on the truth that there is enough. Enough time, enough support, enough opportunity, enough love, enough for you without depriving anyone else. Abundance does not compete. It includes. Inclusion is abundance expressed socially. This is why cooperation always outperforms competition in the long run. Competition is built on lack. Cooperation is built on trust. And trust creates systems that sustain. Now stay here, just a little longer. Let the old reflexes quiet. Let the body learn that it is safe. Let the mind release the habit of scanning for threat. You are not in danger of lack. You are awakening from it. And as you awaken, abundance stops being something you seek and becomes something you live from. Remain here. The field is full. And as you remain in this fullness, something subtle but unmistakable completes itself inside you. You stop asking life for permission to relax. You stop waiting for evidence before you trust. You stop postponing peace until conditions improve. You stop treating abundance as a reward instead of a reality. Because now you see clearly, abundance does not arrive after certainty, it responds to it. This is the final inversion of the old story. The old story said, when I have enough, I will feel safe. Truth says, when I feel safe, I recognize there is enough. Safety precedes supply in awareness, not the other way around. This is why fear creates scarcity, even in abundance, and trust creates abundance, even in simplicity. It was never about quantity. It was about relationship. Your relationship to life has changed. You are no longer negotiating from deficit. You are no longer appealing from separation. You are no longer proving your worth to receive. You are participating. Participation is abundance embodied. When you participate, you contribute. When you contribute, you circulate. When you circulate, flow strengthens. Flow strengthens because it is not blocked by fear. Fear blocks by narrowing. Trust opens by widening. And now your awareness has widened enough to see what was always here. The abundance of intelligence guiding you. The abundance of timing protecting you. The abundance of connections forming around you. None of this needed to be created. It only needed to be noticed. This is why Christ did not perform miracles to impress. He revealed order. He showed people what reality looks like when fear is removed. The feeding of the multitude was not a violation of law. It was a demonstration of it. When gratitude replaced fear, multiplication occurred. When trust replaced panic, supply expanded. Blessing came first. Distribution followed. Blessing is recognition, and recognition is power. Now let this truth integrate into how you walk, speak, and choose. You no longer rush conversations. You no longer hoard opportunities. You no longer cling to outcomes. You listen more. You wait better. You move when it is time, not before, not after. This timing is not learned intellectually. It is felt somatically. Your body now knows what abundance feels like. It feels like steadiness. It feels like openness. It feels like space. Space is not emptiness. Space is capacity. Capacity to receive. Capacity to respond. Capacity to allow more life through you. This is why abundance increases with consciousness. As awareness expands, capacity expands. As capacity expands, experience reflects it. Reflection is inevitable. So do not measure abundance by what arrives tomorrow. Measure it by who you are being now. Are you calm? Are you open? Are you trusting? If yes, abundance is already active. Outer form is only a matter of time, and time is obedient to state. Now, as this awareness settles into its final sacred stillness, let one truth anchor permanently. You do not need to escape lack. You do not need to defeat scarcity. You do not need to argue with fear. You only need to stop agreeing with the idea that abundance is absent, because it never was. It has been breathing you, feeding you, guiding you, even when you doubted it. And now, doubt is no longer necessary. So stand quietly in this knowing. Let your life move from overflow instead of effort. Let your choices come from trust instead of pressure. Let your days unfold without the weight of not enough. There is enough. There has always been enough. And from this truth, live gently and faithfully. Life cannot help but respond in kind. Remain here. You are home. And now, let this knowing come all the way to rest, not as an idea you hold, but as a ground you stand on. You do not need to remind yourself anymore. You do not need to convince your mind. You do not need to fight old thoughts when they pass through. Truth does not need defense. It stabilizes on its own. You have reached the place beneath striving, beneath proving, beneath the old reflex of measuring yourself against time, against others, against imagined shortages. That reflex was never wisdom, it was conditioning. And conditioning dissolves the moment awareness becomes steady. Steady awareness is abundance embodied. From this place, you will notice a quiet confidence emerging, not confidence that shouts, not confidence that compares, but confidence that stands. You will no longer feel the need to rush conversations, justify your worth, or panic when things take time. Time is not your enemy. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. Everything is moving in sequence. Sequence is abundance expressed intelligently. This is why the oak does not envy the forest, and the seed does not resent the tree. Each stage contains the fullness of what it is meant to be. Nothing is lacking, only becoming. And becoming is not a problem to solve. It is a process to trust. Trust does not accelerate by force. Trust deepens by rest. This is the rest spoken of in Scripture. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. Not rest after struggle. Rest instead of struggle. Rest because you see clearly now. You see that abundance is not something that appears once you are worthy enough, disciplined enough, spiritual enough. It is the condition of existence itself, temporarily obscured by fear, but never removed. Fear told you there was not enough time. Fear told you there was not enough love. Fear told you there was not enough opportunity. But fear does not create truth. It only distorts perception. And perception has been corrected. From this point forward, your life will not become perfect, but it will become coherent. Coherence between what you feel, what you believe, and how you move. And coherence always produces results that feel right, even when they challenge you to grow. Growth is not lack. Growth is abundance unfolding. So walk gently now. Let your actions be simple. Let your expectations be calm. Let your inner world remain spacious. When questions arise, do not rush to answer them. When desires surface, do not clutch them. When opportunities appear, meet them without fear. You are no longer operating from scarcity. You are operating from truth. Truth does not hurry. Truth does not compete. Truth does not doubt its source. And because truth is now your foundation, life will continue to respond quietly, faithfully, inevitably rearranging itself around the one thing that truly changed, who you know yourself to be. Be still now. There is nothing missing. There never was. There is only abundance, and you are standing in it. And now, let the understanding become silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of completion. You are no longer searching for proof. You are no longer bracing for shortage. You are no longer measuring life through the lens of not enough. The argument has ended. The illusion of lack no longer needs to be fought, corrected, or replaced. It has simply been seen through. And what is seen through loses all authority. Christ spoke of this moment when he said, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Freedom was never about escaping circumstance. Freedom was about releasing false agreement. You are free now, not because everything has appeared, but because nothing feels withheld. That is the deepest form of abundance, the absence of inner resistance. From here forward, life will continue to move. There will still be seasons. There will still be growth. There will still be unfolding, but it will no longer feel like survival. It will feel like participation. You will notice that what comes to you arrives without strain. What leaves does so without fear. What remains feels right. This is alignment. Alignment does not shout. Alignment does not rush. Alignment does not explain itself. It simply works. So live now from this ground. When the mind whispers old stories of scarcity, do not argue, return to truth. When fear tries to tighten your chest, do not resist, soften into trust. When the world feels loud, do not withdraw, remain present. Presence is abundance embodied. You do not need more time to be whole. You do not need more proof to be safe. You do not need more things to be enough. You already are. And from that wholeness, life responds naturally, generously, intelligently, faithfully. Be still now. Let the breath move you. Let the moment hold you. Let the future come without pressure. There is nothing missing. There has never been lack. There is only abundance. And you are finally awake to it.